Evening all. Welcome once again to the 2013 film blog, and for our continued catch up on the films we missed over the last month or so, and we move now on to In the House, which is the new film by Francois Ozon, who was last seen on screens a few years ago now, with Potiche, which was a strange little film, probably best remembered for Gérard Depardieu and Catherine Deneuve doing a sort of strange Saturday Night Fever kind of thing. But he's back now and doing once again what he does best, which basically is portraying the middle class of France and their internal turmoil. So, In the House, which it's a bit of a weird old film. It's kind of hard to actually describe the film within itself. I mean, the ostensible story of the film is there is a teacher, Gervais, who's played by Fabrice Lucchini, who was also in Potiche, and he's married to the owner of an art gallery, played by Kristen Scott Thomas. And it seems that Gervais is basically very, very fed up with his lot in life. He feels that his latest batch of students are nothing all that special. He's given them a creative writing assignment to do about what they did at the weekend, and he's going through them all, and they're all basically terrible. Until he comes across one from a student that he doesn't really know, called Claude. And he finds that what Claude has written about is his weekend spent with his classmate Rafa, whose house, apparently for years, Claude has been desperate to get into. And he's found a way in by realising that Rafa is not particularly good at maths, and so he's now decided to come round and tutor Rafa in maths to get into the house. And what Gervais kind of discovers is that Claude has a real talent for writing, but what he's written it's vicious and it's nasty. And he at one point describes Rafa's mother as having that unique scent of a middle class woman. So sort of the next day, Gervais takes Claude aside and says, I thoroughly enjoyed your work, but what would your friend Rafa say if he knew you'd written this? To which Claude replies, basically, does that mean then that Gervais doesn't want to read any more of it? And this is sort of how the film develops, in terms of Claude constantly in these 1.5-page writing assignments keeps giving Gervais the introduction into the life and what he is now doing with Rafa, and more importantly, with Rafa's mother. Because the relationship between those two begins to develop more and more. Because it's discovered that Rafa's father, Rafa Senior, is a bit boorish, a bit brutish, and very much a man's man. And sort of Claude discovers that the mother is pretty much unfulfilled and has her own dreams, which neither of the Raffas really care about. And so what Claude does is he can tap into her desires, and of course, being a Francois Ozon film, the desires is mainly the aspiration to become middle class, because everyone in a Francois Ozon film always seems to want to strive to become a middle class person in France. That's sort of what he does. And this is the way the film develops across. And it brings up things with Gervais in which he was himself a failed writer in his youth. And intertwined with this is the story of Gervais's wife, who, as I said, owns an art gallery, which she is concerned is going to get shut down by its owners. And across the entire film, she is trying more and more outlandish types of art to try and get people through the doors, to try and convince these gallery owners not to close her down. And this is what it's all about, the entire film, is this relentless pursuit of art. But what it does at a much more clever way, is it shows us why it is that we, as humans, love to read. What is it that a book can give you that nothing else does? And this is sort of the heart of the film, because for Gervais, what he's getting is the story of Claude and Rafa told in 1.5 page segments every few days. And it's played incredibly well, but you can recognise yourself in there. For when you are in the grip of a really, really good book, all you want to do at any point in time is to read the next part of it, to see what happens next, to find out what is the next big development. And this is the beauty of the film, is that it encapsulates so well that reason of why is it that human beings read, and why does a book entrance you so much more than, say, a TV serial or, say, a box set of DVDs. What is it that a book has? And what it boils down to, ultimately, is that the book and the writing, it's ensnared Gervais's brain in the same way that any good book will get our brains completely tied up in knots. We have to give our undivided attention to what it is you're reading. It's not like anything else. Like watching a DVD, like listening to a CD. You can do other things while you're doing it. While you're reading a book, you can't. And this is the point. It's about controlling somebody else's mind. And it's about how much does Claude know that he's controlling his teacher's mind. Because the point is, we ultimately have no real way of knowing, is this story that Claude is telling true or not? Does it even matter? Is it just an exceptional piece of non-fiction? Who knows? Ultimately, we have to make decisions for ourselves. And there's one particularly good scene, sort of towards the end of the film, in which, for a better word, a plot twist happens. And Gervais, basically in disgust, throws down the manuscript. And he takes, the next day, Claude aside and says to him, "That's wrong." And he explains to him in the most beautiful terms what the ending to a book should do. He says the ending to a book should totally, totally shock you. It'll blow you away. But you'll then look at it and say, actually, that could not have ended any other way. And he says, that ending you've written there is not right. That's not the ending. It's lazy, it's sloppy. It's not the ending you need here. And this is the whole point. It becomes a sort of symbiotic, dependent relationship. As much as in the past, Claude has been dependent upon Rafa and stalking his family, now Gervais is dependent upon his student. And in his dependence, what he's doing is now ignoring his wife, who's played, like I say, brilliantly by Kristen Scott Thomas, who does a superb job, because she is now completely unengaged, because she is also reading this novel at the same time. But she's sort of concerned that why is her husband investing so much time into this student's writing? Because ultimately it's not even anymore a class project. At one point, the only way that Claude can carry on in the early days, teaching Rafa as a tutor, because right at the start, Rafa's mother can't stand Claude, and she's trying to convince Rafa's father to invest in a proper tutor. And so Claude says, if you, Gervais, want me to carry on with this story, you have to find some way in which I can stay in the house. And so what ultimately Gervais has to do is steal a maths exam so that they can make sure that Rafa passes it. And there's a wonderful scene in which Gervais goes and sits down in the school canteen next to the maths teacher. And I think all of us at some point in time have been in a work environment in which we need a favour from someone who we don't know or really like all that much, and we have to sort of sit next to them very awkwardly and ask for this favour, even though there's nowhere in the world you less want to be in that moment than right there. And again, it's played really, really well. I mean, ultimately, what we're looking at here is the story of the complete roller coaster of human emotion that a piece of literature is, the way in which it completely drags you in and controls your life when you are reading good literature. And this is the whole point. This is why we search all our lives for those pieces of work that ultimately will trap us. Will have you sitting at your desk in work just thinking, please, can the clock just run down? I want to go home and read out. I have to find out what happens next. It's the part where you look at the clock and realise it's 1 a.m. and you just have to read the next chapter, even though it's 50 pages long. This is what it's about. It's about understanding why we as human beings have such a relationship with literature. It's because it does infect our very brains. It completely controls you, and the film completely successfully explores that idea, even though it ultimately leads to the downfall of Gervais, the ending of his marriage, the ruining of his career, potentially. And yet, there's a wonderful last scene in which Gervais and Claude sitting down. The story of Rafa is now complete. It's done. It's no more. And yet the two of them sit at a brilliant moment and just look out at this apartment building opposite them, with all these windows, with the curtains drawn back and lights on and people inside them. And they look at these windows and they realise out there are millions and millions of stories that are happening right now. And yet only a few of those will be even a fraction as engaging as Claude's tale about Rafa was. But can they find it? And this is it. It's sort of like when you finish a really good book and the first thing you do is suddenly start wondering, where is the nearest book? I need to get the sequel. It's about that next hit. It's almost like some kind of insane drug that you have to find out what happens next. Where do we go from here? What's now to do? The fact is that you've just exhausted yourself emotionally within a book, within a film, whatever else. Put it down, and the first thing you want to do is find out, what can I read next? I want to get back that buzz that I've just had. I mean, it really is a stunningly good film to really explore all these different ideas about what it is that makes literature and writing so powerful. And really, if you do get a chance, I cannot advise you more to go and watch this film. If you in any way enjoy literature and enjoy the journey that it takes you on and the grip that a good book will get on your psyche, you will watch this film and you will think, yes, it's got that spot on. It fully understands exactly what its viewers have gone through in their lives. It understands precisely when a book or some other writing has got its claws into you and it will not let go. That's what it's all about. It's a beautiful film, incredibly well made, so worth watching. I really cannot say to you enough. If you can, and you don't mind French films, just seek out this film and just understand and marvel at how well it encapsulates what it is to be a lover of literature in the human world. And I'll speak to you soon. Tra.